This is part 6 of our October series, Death Cars, General Patton. General George S. Patton, Jr., one of America's greatest battlefield commanders, died on December 21, 1945, in an army hospital in Heidelberg, Germany. The 60-year-old general had fought in almost every American conflict of the 20th century, the pinnacle being World War II.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser.
He led armies from Africa to Sicily and Europe. He was usually on the front lines and usually won. He is most known for the relief given during the Battle of the Bulge in France and for driving hard and fast into Germany, defeating their army and saving countless lives. He became a true hero of the people. Yet this bigger-than-life general could not be protected from a simple car accident several months into peacetime. 12 days before his death on December 9, 1945, he accepted an invitation from his Chief of Staff, Major General Hobart Gay, to go pheasant hunting near the base. Originally, Patton was sitting in the front seat of the 1938 Army Cadillac, which was being driven by Private H.L. Woodring, his favorite chauffeur. However, when the general noticed the hunting guide's dog was riding in an open-top Jeep, he asked for the party to pull over and had the dog sit in the front of the car so it could warm up. Patton moved to the back seat. His driver sped too fast over a railroad crossing in Mannheim, Germany, and plowed into a passenger side of a left-turning army truck headed into a depot. Patton was the only injured person, and even though he only visually had a gash on his head, he was actually paralyzed. He asked his Chief of Staff, Major General Hobart, who was sitting right next to him, to rub his fingers. When Gay did so, Patton barked, "Go ahead, Hap, work my fingers." He was rushed to the hospital, and x-rays revealed a broken neck. He was put into traction with fishhooks implanted into his cheeks and either side of his upper jaw, attached to weights to stabilize his neck. His wife soon joined him from the U.S. and read him books and letters from admirers. He wasn't recovering and was put in a full body cast to go home to the U.S. He unfortunately succumbed to that paralysis before the transfer could take place. After, his resting place needed to be determined. His wife Beatrice wanted the body to be returned to the United States and buried near their Massachusetts home. The French government, grateful for Patton's role in liberating their country, offered to bury him in Napoleon's tomb, where a number of great marshals were laid to rest. Major General Jeffrey Keyes, Patton's deputy commander in North Africa and Sicily, however, had the most appropriate suggestion. Beatrice made up her mind. "Of course," she declared, "he should be buried here. Why didn't I think of it? I know George would want to lie beside the men in his army who have fallen." Patton was buried at the American Cemetery in Ham, Luxembourg, which was filled with Patton's 3rd Army soldiers killed during the Battle of the Bulge. People lined the streets during his funeral procession. The cemetery had to move Patton's casket, though. It was originally in the back of the cemetery, and the cemetery grounds were getting completely demolished by all of the visitors trekking to pay their respects. They moved him up front, surrounded by concrete pavers and a fence around the actual grave. Patton was once again in the front line with his cross facing his fallen army. Now, many theorize that the car accident was anything but. Patton was just as known for his aggressiveness as his war victories. He was one of the few generals with combat tank experience. He embarrassed some of his peers in Sicily by winning the race to Messina against the British 8th Army. He possibly, coincidentally, was accused of slapping and dressing down soldiers in a field hospital who claimed to be suffering from battle fatigue. This made the press out for Patton's blood, and in turn encouraged a handful to ask for him to be relieved of duty. He was too valuable to the war effort, so this did not happen. German commanders were so fearful of Patton's abilities and so convinced he was leading the real invasion that they maintained troops in Pas-de-Calais even after D-Day. Patton also rubbed Russian officers the wrong way in many social and diplomatic relations. He also had been talking about the prospects of invading Russia, saying they were obviously inferior to Americans and would fold in no time. Many in the upper ranks of the U.S. military didn't like such proposition, a feeling which was shared by much of Washington, D.C. and other powers that be of the same time. Some believe it was Stalin who had Patton killed because he feared the man could pull off an invasion successfully. Others claim it was the CIA, others in the U.S. government, actors in the British government, or even Allied leaders working with Stalin to get rid of Patton. Patton also was vocal in post-war Germany about the denazification process and other moves with the government. Eisenhower removed him as the U.S. commander in Bavaria for these statements, and he was transferred to the 15th Army Group, his final post. Whether all this is conspiracy or truth, we'll never likely know. He was certainly a controversial figure. As far as the death car, it has been restored and is housed in the General George Patton Museum in Fort Knox, Kentucky. Unfortunately, this museum is closed until further notice.